We get $4 million from the bank. We're closing in on $1 million from investors, which is still kind of crazy to say that out loud. But we still need $1 million, right? So we're short. And I suspect if you're jumping into the boutique hotel space and you're trying to take down a larger deal, you might find yourself in the same seat, right? Of needing to syndicate. And syndicate, by the way, it's just a fancy word for saying, two or more people coming together in a common enterprise with the expectation of profit. And typically, where a manager or some other entity is going to drive the gains or the losses. So you've got kind of a sponsor, so that's people like Mike and I, scouting for deals, structuring the debt, finding the money, finding operators, property managers long term for a property. How do we drive this and create great value? Welcome, Boutique Hotel Nation, to another episode of the unofficial Boutique Hotel Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Adam Walz, and on this show, we talk about that leap, that jump, that flight. Hopefully, my wings open from short-term rentals to boutique hotels. It's not just me on today's episode, but I'd like to bring in my Mister from another sister, Micah Thomas. Micah, how you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Thanks for having me yet again. We got a lot to talk about today, so I'm excited to jump right in.
We do, man. Well, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with just like update on maybe our deal? So again, we're recording this 11/11, so a couple weeks away from Thanksgiving, Christmas. Again, we're still targeting December 5th as our close date. That might slip back a little bit, but do you want to talk about maybe the latest and greatest on kind of the credit committee and where we're at with like lenders?
Yeah, just to kind of summarize where we are, we found out that the government is likely going to open in the next few days, which is big news for us because we're going with an SBA 7A loan, which is through the Small Business Administration, and that loan is unable to close without the government being open. So the fact that we have good news and positive signs about the government opening is really reassuring for our deal in particular, especially for us trying to get this deal done in the front half of December and getting those investors some bonus depreciation, a few other tax benefits. So very excited about that. And like we talked about in the most recent podcast, we are currently under the process, or we're waiting because an appraisal was commissioned with a feasibility study, as well as like a little bit of a land survey, you can call it, or a phase one environmental study to make sure that the property is in good shape and able to be purchased. So very exciting, and we're pushing right along.
I like it, man. And anyways, it feels like the last couple of weeks have been pretty demo heavy. Again, we're trying to make decisions about, do we go with cloud beds? Do we go with Muse? Do we go with another provider? We've looked at payroll software, so we're thinking Gusto. We've looked at accounting software. We've met a couple accountants. We're going to meet more. How are you feeling as we kind of go through? I don't know. It feels like we're in demo season. Like as much as we feel kind of locked in on lenders, a lot of our minds or our calendars are occupied with things that will need to be true like a month from now. So how you feeling on that front?
The word or the saying organized chaos comes to mind. I mean, they're scheduled, they're on the calendar. We just have to keep showing up. But you're exactly right. We're going through the process of shopping different vendors. We need to know what's going to be the best use case for each of these softwares, each of these companies. And all of them are great, but we have to, go through the process of which ones are best for what our vision is and what we want to do. And then, of course, there's always at the end of the tunnel a cost. So we have to make sure the cost fits in line with our budget. So it's interesting. I don't think I'm exhausted from doing it, but it's very interesting to see how different companies market themselves in different ways to set themselves apart. And then, we have to make 1,001 decisions every single day. So it just adds to the list of decisions that we continue to make. So I think we're in a good place. Very excited, but also we are working diligently to be fiduciaries of our investors' money and make sure we got the best product in each field.
Yep. And how are you feeling? We didn't talk about this beforehand, but how are you feeling about? We have a backup lender that we're kind of courting as well. They were looking for a 504. They're chasing us currently. I feel bad that we've not gotten back to them, but basically we've passed through kind of all the front end, but now they're asking us to reach out to our coaches for potential personal guarantees or personal financial statements. And for context, they're willing to give us $5 million of kind of the projected $6 million if we went 504, versus we could get $4 million if we go 7A. And again, 7A, you have one lender that's kind of underwritten or protected by the U.S. government, whereas the 504 product, again, it's typically a first position and a second position. We've already found a couple second position players. The question for us was, could we find somebody to sit in first position? But as far as we could tell in all of our conversations, it felt like 504 was just going to take way longer and would automatically push us into February, March, April. Anyways, like, we don't have a bank commitment letter on the 7A. We are actively working towards that. We think in the next 2 weeks we should have that and be able to proceed. But it is an interesting situation that we find ourselves in, right? Where we're talking with multiple lenders, because if something happened, knocking on wood right now, if something happened to our, first position, the 7A product, we'd have to scramble and find somebody else. But I don't know, what are your thoughts or any lessons learned for other operators who, again, maybe find this episode months or years from now and find themselves in the same position? They're going to close in a month, but again, they don't have that commitment letter from that first lender.
Yeah, there's a few angles I want to take with this one. I think the first thing to note is that when you talk to a lender, they ask for quite the amount of documentation. And you may get the same request from two different lenders, but they may want it structured a different way. And I'll give an example of like underwriting. One bank may want you to do 3 years of monthly projections. The other bank may want just annual projections on a 2-year basis. So things are a little bit different from lender to lender. And being that we're so deep in the process with this current lender that's offering the 7A loan, it feels very redundant to go and provide a laundry list of documents to lender B that also may not be able to close our loan until February or March. I want to mention that even though we're kind of dragging our feet with lender B, we've gotten some really good signs from lender A. Those signs being that we've passed the underwriting committee with the lead underwriter really enjoying or liking our deal. We've passed the credit committee that's approved our deal contingent on the feasibility study and appraisal being done. So with those things in the back of our mind, I think it's caused us to kind of pump the brakes on lender B and really focus on getting lender A to finish what they're doing and get us across the finish line. And they are the lender that also gave us that tentative closing date in the beginning of December. I just wanted to really make note that each lender is going to ask for a laundry list of closing documents and things to get your loan approved. And when we have so many other things going on, like demos, and we're still raising capital, lender B with such a long timeline doesn't seem like the best option. An option, but not the best option at the time. So just wanted to make light of that.
That's great. And again, option C for us was basically like bridge lending, gap lending. I mean, almost like hard money, where you're talking 10, 12, 14% interest rate. So again, there's always a lender out there. It's just going to be kind of, how bad is it going to hurt, and the cost of capital. And quite frankly, more than one kind of seasoned veterans in the hospitality space that I've talked with over the past 6 months is saying, that's going to take years off your life. You're going to end up with more gray hair or no hair. Yes, you can make it work, but it's a painful and stressful way to go. And then the clock is really against you, where you want to try and refinance out 12, 18, 24 months into the deal versus SBA. Again, we're talking about 8.5% interest rate is kind of what it is right now. So prime plus 1.5 and like fixed for 25 years. So there are actually prepayment penalties for the first 3 years, because the bank wants to make sure that it makes it's interest, right? That they're paid for taking a risk and loaning out this money. But anyways, just wanted to throw that out there because, and maybe that's even a good segue because I know people like Soli Cayetano and Terra Palm Springs, and there are quite a few successful operators that have just used bridge debt. Go, you know what? SBA lending, USDA loans. It's time heavy. It's process heavy. You're giving me thousands of requests for information. You know what? Like, I believe in myself. I believe in the deal. I've got equity or capital partners. I'm going to take it down. And so, anyways, I've definitely been following her story. She's under contract on her second hotel, actively raising for that. So again, it's kind of leaning in deeper into the wellness space. But because I've been following her story and several others, it came to my attention that she was actually hosting with Amy a capital raising event. And my wife was out of town in Vietnam. I couldn't go. But again, you represented the squad, man. So I was pumped to hear. Again, you learned about it, and like a day later, you're like, "Yeah, I'll go. I'll buy tickets." So, anyways, you tell people a little bit about the decision to go, and then obviously I've got lots of questions, and you probably got lots of stories. But what
Yeah.
was it like attending that event and getting to meet Soli in person? Not that I'm
Yeah.
jealous.
So for the first thing I'll say is it doesn't take much to get me out of West Virginia. So I mean, it was. I mean, it was a very thought out
Respectfully.
decision. No, but in all reality, it was a great event. Like you said, I got to meet Soli in person, as well as Amy and a few other really big names in the real estate investing and like raising private capital world. So I learned a ton. Met a lot of good people, and I could probably go on and on about what happened and how it transpired. But I think some of the major takeaways I took from this event was just how you can take advantage and raise private money from people in your circle or maybe 1 to 2 handshakes away. This doesn't have to be a very intricate operation to get capital from people, especially when it comes to real estate. One term that Amy Majuri talked about a lot is just being able to explain and justify why real estate is a protected, insured, and secure asset, especially when compared to something like the stock market. The perfect example is if you're investing in a stock and that stock goes to zero, there's no insurance that's going to get you your money back. You're pretty much SOL, so to speak, unless that stock covers. Whereas with a piece of real estate as an asset, if a hurricane comes through or, unfortunately the property burns down, you have insurance that can rebuild your asset, and you can continue to benefit from that asset. So I would say that's probably a really important piece to make, because there's so many people who say, why can I invest in real estate when it doesn't take me really any effort at all to put my money in the S&P 500 or Nvidia or Apple, or name said stock that's doing great right now. And you're right, that is a very easy and profitable way to make money, but there's always the conversation of diversity, as well as putting your money in something that's a little bit more secure than the stock market, and quite frankly, not as volatile as well. So I would say that's probably the first thing that I wanted to bring up. The second thing is the amount of people, and even at the conference, there was so many people that didn't realize that they can take their 401k or their IRA, they can put it in a custodial, self-directed IRA account and invest that money into someone else's deal. And it was shocking to me to realize how many people in the room that didn't know they could do that with their investment funds, almost to the point that those same people went and started to talk to other investors that had active deals to see how they could be involved in their active deals after that session. So again, tons of good points, but I think those are probably the two that come off the top of the mind just initially, but really had a great time in San Diego. I'm sorry, not San Diego, Long Beach, LA.
Long Beach, represent. Well, and to that end of the self-directed IRA, one of our investors that's already expressed interest in our deal, he had asked me if we had kind of any recommended or preferred vendors. Again, I've met a few people individually at some real estate meetups here locally in the Bay Area. But, again, when I kind of like Googled, I used ChatGPT, I kind of like ran through a few different filters. And anyways, I ended up recommending the Entrust Group, Entrust. So people are looking for help on this Entrust Group, or a backup option was Equity Trust. And they're at trustetc.com. So those are, again, some kind of free, these are huge companies that do this nationally, all 50 states. I mean, millions, if not billions of dollars under management, that are very familiar with real estate, and specifically real estate syndications, right? And the idea is, if you've just got your money kind of parked in your old company's 401k, or maybe you rolled it into like a traditional IRA, again, you're just limited based on the brokerage that you're at. So if you're at Vanguard, cool, I've got access to my low cost index funds. I love that. That's where I've got like my traditional IRA. Or maybe you're at Charles Schwab or Fidelity, or, I mean, there's countless number of custodians, but the classic custodian is going to point you towards a basket of options. And the whole point of the self-directed IRA is for those that want to be a little bit more entrepreneurial, right? To kind of, rather than have that investment selection be selected for me or curated for me, I want to be able to invest in everything. So I would say I heard about this a lot over the last few years with people that wanted to grow their crypto accounts in kind of a tax deferred or tax advantage type way. So that was pretty famous because, again, if I'm at Vanguard and I wanted exposure, 1%, 10% of my portfolio in Bitcoin, I couldn't do that. Right. I could go out and buy a Ledger wallet and get my own diversification, but it was not in a tax advantaged account. So the whole premise here, and for decades people have been taking advantage of this, is with real estate, right? So again, I can carve off 50K, 100K, $1 million, right, of my IRA. It can be a portion of, or it could be the entire thing. And then I can dedicate that. I can direct that towards something. And then obviously any gains, any interest, right, the principal has to eventually come back to that IRA to continue to enjoy that tax advantage. If you're just, wiring those cash disbursements, to your Wells Fargo and, enjoying some great sushi or buying cars, like, the government's going to treat that as a disbursement, right? That you literally liquidated your IRA. And so you would lose the tax advantage, and you'd also get penalized, by the way. Which basically defeats the entire point of putting money into that type of an account or trying to invest within that account. So anyways, just kind of wanted to add a couple points on that, just because I've been doing some research and actively talking with an investor who said, yeah, I've got 100K for your deal, but talking with my wife, it might be better that this comes out of the IRA as opposed to, our checking or savings account, or again, selling something in our brokerage account and then having to face the tax consequences of a capital gain. So anyways, a couple points on my end as well, but do you want to pick up off that, or at some point I want to talk about the pitch competition as well, because I know you got pretty pumped up about the Shark Tank moment, so I feel like we got to talk.
Yeah, we definitely got to talk about that. But I would say two other points that I thought about while you were talking. We were at the conference and they really talked big about social media and just the ability to market yourself and your brand and everything you're doing for practically free, and a lot of people don't take advantage of it. So Solely, she does a really good job of kind of that social media presence and just developing a list of potential partners or investors that you can work with to help see your deal through. So I would say that was probably a big one, just taking advantage of these free tools we have at our fingertips. But then also being able to reach out. Amy Majuri spoke specifically on LinkedIn. One of her strategies is going and reaching out to investment bankers, and she kind of gave us a pitch that she gives them and explains how she can help the investment bankers help their clients. Again, all backed by real estate that's protected, secured, insured for either diversification or just another play outside of the stock market that could be profitable and give you a double-digit return. So I would say those were probably the other two things, and I'll transition to the pitch competition. It was intense is how I would explain it. To give you an example, they had the Jaws music playing as the two contestants walked to the stage. So it was very intense, and they pulled out a little bit of theatrics to put the pressure on. But all in all, it was a great event. Really, two investors got a chance to pitch their deals. One deal was a multifamily development in Philadelphia, and the other one was a office conversion to a loft in Chicago. So got a really good chance to look at one multifamily and one like commercial to residential deal, and just see how other people talk through the numbers and they go about pitching their deal. And one important thing that I learned from seeing that is, the numbers are important. People want to make sure you know your numbers, you know how to underwrite your deal, you understand the market, so on and so forth. But a lot of times investors are investing in you as an individual and your story. So you can have the greatest deal in the world with the greatest return, but if they don't like you as a person, or if they don't buy into your story and your vision, they're likely not going to invest with you. So I think that was a really good takeaway, just being able to understand that these investors are humans and they have emotions, and it's very important to allow them to learn more about you. That way they're investing in you as a person and not just a property that's on the other side of the country that they've never seen before. So that was probably one of the biggest takeaways I had as well.
Yeah, I like that. And maybe that's a good segue to talk about, actually this week, tomorrow, we're actually going to be hosting our first public webinar, right? So again, trying to not just preach from the back seat, but to walk the talk and all the things. So, again, part of the goal of creating a podcast was obviously to kind of work in public and share our story going from 0 to 1 in the boutique hotel space, feature experts and some of our coaches from the Boutique Hotel Secrets community, other students, other people doing this for the first time as well. Again, just to be as educational and inspiring as possible. But yeah, look, I mean, our deal, cool. We get $4 million from the bank. We're closing in on $1 million from investors, which is still kind of crazy to say that out loud, but we still need $1 million, right? So we're short. And I suspect if you're jumping into the boutique hotel space and you're trying to take down a larger deal, you might find yourself in the same seat, right? Of needing to syndicate. And syndicate, by the way, it's just a fancy word for saying, two or more people coming together in a common enterprise with the expectation of profit, and typically where a manager or some other entity is going to drive the gains or the losses. So you've got kind of a sponsor, so that's people like Micah and I, scouting for deals, structuring the debt, finding the money, finding operators, property managers long-term for our property, right? How do we drive this and create great value? But then you're hunting for LPs, right? Your limited partners, people that might have 50K, 100K or more that they want to stick into an alternative asset like a hotel. Anyways, I think it'd be really interesting to start hosting these events publicly. Our goal again is to try and educate for people interested in the boutique hotel space. Who are we? Why boutique hotels? Why Page, Arizona? Why do we think this is a better use of our time and investor capital than just going out and continuing down the short-term rental path? And maybe, Micah, you can talk about, we talked about doing a series of 3 webinars, right? One kind of pre-close, one post-close, and then maybe once we start renovations.
Yeah. So first off, I want to lead by saying an LP investor is probably the best type of investor to be. And the reason I say that is because you pretty much let your money do the work and you sit back and collect mailbox money. We are not currently in that situation, but I think both of our goals is to be there where we don't have to work. We don't have to manage operations of a hotel. We don't have to worry about guest satisfaction. We just walk to our mailbox once a month or once a quarter and we pick up the check. Maybe not mailbox, but you get what I'm saying. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight that. But yeah, I am very excited to kind of kick off this webinar series. We have talked about our deal. I can't even count how many times, but I'm very excited to kind of get a recording where we're only talking about our deal. People can get to know us a little bit more, get to know more about our deal, like you said, why Page, Arizona, why we think this is such a great opportunity and a great deal, and what the future looks like. So, like you said, this is before we close. We'll also do a webinar after we close. We intend to show what our prototype room will look like before we finish renovations, and then towards the end of our renovation as well. So people can really keep track and follow along our journey. And if they're interested in investing in our deal, we definitely have equity available for that as well. So very excited for that tomorrow.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one other kind of interesting person that I met this past week, apologies if I'm not saying the last name correctly, but Alexei Chernobylski. So he is the founder of GPLP Match. Again, has been in the game for a long time. So anyways, if you are a GP or a sponsor looking to advertise your deal, assuming you're 506C and can generally solicit, GPLP Match could be a useful resource for you. Or if you're an LP looking to get educated, how should I think about allocating this money into real estate? Should I put it into office space? Should I put it into multifamily? Should I invest in mobile parks, data centers? There's so many opportunities calling for investor capital. So Lexi and his team do a great job, have free newsletters, have some premium newsletters, but different resources. And again, trying to curate some different investment opportunities for LPs. But anyways, one of the vendors that he'd mentioned was Grow It. And as luck would have it, Lucas, the founder of Grow It, actually wasn't sure if he was going to meet with us. But then I told him we were about ready to sign with InvestNext, kind of a competitive investor relations portal. He made time, and then I found out he was actually at a capital raising event. And lo and behold, it was actually the one Micah was like in flight to. So you had a chance to meet with Lucas, and maybe we can kind of end on this point. But investor relations software, meeting people like Alexi, Lucas. I mean, there's this whole ecosystem of people doing interesting things, adding value, educating, inspiring kind of the next generation of hoteliers. So, how was your conversation and demo with Lucas?
I just want to start by saying it's such a small world. Like, what were the chances that the person you had the demo with earlier that morning would end up being at the same conference I was attending? Like, such a small world. But it was great. I mean, Lucas and his partner, they took time out of their time at the conference, sat me down one-on-one and went through everything from end to end. What setup on the back end looks like, what the front-facing investor page and portal looks like, even how you handle like investor disbursements once we send out payments to investors. So, I mean, it was great. They're really, really great guys. Very, very knowledgeable about what they do. And one of the things, of course, I liked is that they were competitive in pricing. Once we shopped we're shopping several of everything, investor relation portals being one of those. And once we compare pricing, they were very competitive. So, it was just great. Maybe a sign that showed me that I probably needed to be there for this to happen. But very, very, very grateful to be connected with Lucas.
It was meant to be, man. So, okay. Well, look, my little guy's back. It's Veterans Day as we're recording this. So thank you for your service, if that applies to you. But that also means the schools are closed. And so I got a little man running around the house being wild. So probably time for me to get back to that. But anyways, we wanted to record this episode, kind of document some of the lessons learned, certainly from this capital raising event, people that we're meeting, how our deal is unfolding real time, so that when you hear this, right, again, you can kind of go from the beginning, hey, these guys have something under LOI, to PSA, through due diligence, to, hey, we think we have the equity, oh, we lost the equity, to, we think we got the debt, to, oh, we lost the debt, to, hey, we got everything, right? And we're going to be able to close. Yeah. So again, every story is unique. But our goal was, again, to try and document our story as best as we could, kind of honestly, transparently about the highs and the lows of this process. But man, even from where I'm sitting today, I am so excited about this asset class. And like you said, Micah, like, I think every day we put our best foot forward and we just, give it time and energy and stay committed to that vision. We don't know how all of the pieces are going to come together, but having faith, having that mindset, right, that this will work, this is where we're supposed to be, I think is so crucial. So Anyways, if this is interesting to you, again, thank you for tuning in, for listening to us talk about this topic. But feel free to reach out on social media, DM us. Or again, if you're looking to get around a community, right? Boutique Hotel Secrets is a great community. Tell them that Adam and Micah sent you. We'll be happy to get you into the cohort, set you up with a coach, all the things that you need to be successful in this asset class. Anyways, Micah, let me flip the mic back to you one last time. Any closing thoughts or words for people before they move on with their day?
I just want to say one thing. I looked it up on my little notepad that I wrote down while I was at the conference, and Sean he gave a very insightful saying. He said, "Where your focus goes, your energy flows." So pretty much where you can focus in and hone in on, that's where your energy will go. So like you said, we're kind of going through this beautiful roller coaster to get this deal across the finish line, as I'm sure many other hotel owners have been through. But the most important part is that we keep the focus where it needs to be, and I think that the energy and the success will follow. So I'll leave with that.
Amazing. Great value. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you keep your focus, again, on hotels or exploring this jump, right, between short-term rentals and this asset class. So thanks again for tuning in. Time and attention is valuable, and that's the pod. We'll catch you on the next one.